Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Tuesday, December 10th, 2024, and today's topic will be pretty much what this week will be, which is figure drawing. And I wasn't sure what to call this video, but I want to basically create a scene on this sketch page. So I'm just gonna put scene. So yeah, this is a continuation from yesterday's video, and if you are returning, welcome back. And if you're new, I sketch and post every day, and I use timers to stay focused and to build a sketching habit. I'm going to use a 10-minute timer because this is going to take some time. I'll see if I can do it within 30 minutes, which I mean, I know I can because I'm going to use I'll link to yesterday's video, but there were some concepts and principles and guidelines to help out. So yeah, I was wondering what I would call this one, and I'm just gonna go with what I can, like what idea I have for this part of the page. But before I do that, and to get warmed up, so yeah, yesterday's video I talked about a lot of different things, and when I was sketching this part, I was talking about how, so I was going off of, I sketched this thumbnail from reference, and then when I had that, I sketched other, like these other sketches from the sketch of the reference, if that makes sense. And I was saying how you could go the other way, which is just invent something. And that's kind of what I did here. I just drew in some figures, so if you compare yesterday's, I won't put a picture or anything. You can check out that video if you feel like it. You don't have to. Basically, I just drew thumbnails of like the gesture basically, and the basic figure, the mannequin. But then from there I made it into like concept art for my story basically. Pretty much, I'm always going to do that. Part of why I want to do this is because I'm just gonna, this pen is running out, so that'll help me out a little bit. So part of why I want to do this is I sort of want to figure out like the look, but then it's also figure drawing. So if the camera is over his right shoulder, so I'm just gonna sort of start to block in, while at the same time like not making it too take up too much space, because I need some stuff down here. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure. And then you can kind of control and use a pencil, obviously, if it's easier. This is just my preference. So as I do this, one, I have to kind of warm up, but then the other thing is that it'll help you see when you are imagining, like creating or inventing, like out of imagination. Now, why does it matter? Well, one, it's, to me, like that's my goal, is to do that. Like, there's nothing wrong with using reference, but my goal is to be able to just draw from imagination. And part of that is the freedom that so it's more about like the character, it's more about my ideas, and I don't have to try to find reference. It's just, to me, it just takes up so much time. Now, if that's your job to do it that way, then that's different. But my job is not to try to copy reference. My job is not to try to make it look like a storyboard or or anything like that, or like that realistic. But my job is to, or my work, or my goal is to tell a story. So part of what's going on here is also character design. And so I'm not going to be too, since I don't actually have, I've just started designing these characters. So that's 10 minutes. I'll start another 10-minute timer, and I'll probably be able to, we'll see how far I get. Now, there's a lot going on here. So there's, hopefully you can see that. What was I saying? Yeah. So there's a lot going on. There's, again, use a pencil if you want. I'm being kind of, since I know like I'm going to be, like it kind of fits the style of the page, like the sketchiness, like I don't mind that because it's my sketchbook, so I'm not going to worry too much about stuff like that. I could always turn it into an illustration at some point. So what's going on here is I'm just kind of setting up the scene. So this is using proportion, it's using figure drawing. When when I am studying figures, I'm studying it for the sake of this kind of thing, to be able to just create characters and put them into a scene. And I'm still getting used to talking about what I'm doing while recording, but it helps me to kind of stick with these stages that I talked about. So this will be like the sketch, and I only take it as far as, like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So for example, I just sketched this out, and I'm just gonna make this work because the sketch is good. So if you are working on this kind of thing, this might be helpful to sort of, like, if this part doesn't work, then it doesn't work. So that's why I was saying you can use a pencil and erase this and just make this part, the sketch, look good. So that's the first part. So I can see that I'm not going to be able to fit like the queen because she would be on this side according to the because I'm making it look kind of like a comic page, so I won't be able to fit her, and that's okay because I can always do something else over here. Part of why I wanted to do this is because if we are looking at like the point of view of the king sitting on the throne here, so a lot of it's going to be covered up. So that's why I didn't want to spend too much time with the figure. We'll draw some figures down here though. So part of this is like I'm wanting to figure out how it works also. I mean, I have ideas. We're looking from the viewpoint like of the king, but then we know, like, we want to show like he's sitting on some kind of platform, like on his throne and stuff. So it's going to be kind of like down. So the next thing would be kind of going back to like the figure drawing where you figure out how tall. So if we put a figure here, we could have some people be below, and then like these are people, the court, people of the courtiers. So that's the way I would do that. And then since I'll just put down some guidelines a little bit, since you're kind of looking down at the floor, so you can sort of put in the, you'd see kind of the top of the head. And then you just go back to the gesture drawing, like the little stick figure. I'm not gonna zoom in because I don't know if that will really help. So this comes from studying, like just like those little thumbnails like this, just doing those studies. And sometimes when you're doing a study, like the point of it is to draw, like make it look like the thing you're studying. Some of it is just to figure out the proportions, kind of like this, where this is mostly just proportion. And we'll just have the people sort of bow to the king and queen. And so this is perspective, but it's going to be kind of thumbnails. So this would be kind of considered a thumbnail, but it would work. Like to me, it does. And then you could throw in like some textures to kind of make it look like, again, it's the composition. So since the topic is figure drawing within like a scene, I don't know what to call it, like maybe figure drawing within scenes. I'm not that great with titles because I have a lot of kind of the same ideas but in different variations of it. So I think like it's important not only for this video, but also if you're just kind of sketching this sort of thing yourself, to keep it at like the sketch level, which is step 1 or stage 1 or the first pass or whatever you want to call it, and just leave it there. And then the next one would be like the shading part of it. But I want to draw something else here, mainly to just fill up this space, but also kind of go over some ideas. So I'm just kind of going off of like what I'm sketching, again, just from imagination. Maybe right here we'll kind of turn the camera around to like be where these courtier people, the emissaries, let's say. Now if I get this far, one thing I want to do is just kind of take screenshots of like different movies or shows and stuff like that, because obviously I like all of the medieval and fantasy based like movies. But so the next thing is we can turn the camera around to where we are behind the ambassadors, and then have like the king and queen be like in the background. So yeah, that's the background. So first, let's figure out how big to make the king and queen and sort of set the scene that way. So they'll be like, again, I'm just gonna, so sometimes I'll do a thing where the picture is this small and then I'll zoom in kind of like that. Like I drew that and then I did a bigger version, like a study. This one is not quite a study, although it kind of is, but it's also like setting a scene. So so I'm gonna figure out, like, again, that's why proportions are really important. So I'm basically just gonna recreate this, but instead of zooming in, we'll zoom out. So we'll figure out, so obviously they're going to be thumbnails. that's 10 minutes. I'll start another one and kind of wrap it up. Well, I'll only be able to get as far as sketching right here. But then I'll probably work on it some more, kind of like this. This is pretty different than what I had in yesterday's video, but it's kind of how it is. Although I do have other videos if you just want to see kind of how to shade and render and all of that. So I'll start another 10-minute timer. So that'll be the background where they are, where the king and queen are. So that's fine because it's a thumbnail and they're far away. And then I'm just gonna, the next step would be to shade it. But I'm gonna, sometimes if you just wanna like put in some figures, you can. Again, use a pencil if it helps. Now that we have this, because I drew it like this, then you can kind of figure out like the basic perspective. Like it's basically 1 point because it's going towards them. They're at the center and everything's sort of radiating outwards, which makes sense because it's a throne room. So you can kind of set the scene that way. And then we'll have the people be below. And they all have to bow. So you can just use the figures to figure out the, again, this is just off the top of my head, like if this is a thumbnail, then you would develop this a little bit more. But that's why thumbnails are good, because then you don't have to spend too much time on it. But yeah, it's just using the same principles of figure drawing. And because of the, so one thing I wanted to go over is because of the perspective, like let's say you had somebody right here and you had like the vanishing point. If you wanted someone, for the sake of this, we're just gonna make them all be the same height. So they're gonna recede because of perspective. But that's how you make that work. Like their heads will be on the same like vanishing point line. Same with like if you want them to be lined up. So just kind of like that. Now I'm being very sketchy with it because of it's a thumbnail, but this is a quick way if you want to just come up with an idea real quick, because sometimes that's the main thing. Part of this is concept art, part of it is because I am working on comics and I'm writing novels and doing all sorts of stuff, so and I haven't like drawn a ton of characters within scenes and interacting and stuff. But these are just some ideas. Kind of like this. The next step would be, if you want to develop this further, is to do just a bigger picture. But yeah, I mean, a scene like this, it takes work, obviously, to pull it off, but it all starts with like the layout. That's what this is, it's a layout. So that's like the first sketch of that. And because I like to keep it kind of small like this, because this may not have looked good. This may not have worked. I mean, I'm actually okay with it. But then the next thing would be like the shading, which is like the lighting. And part of that, you can kind of keep it basic if you just have to invent it. I mean, I like looking at reference, so I'm not against that. But I like to apply it to my idea. Hopefully, like, that's what makes it interesting, is the fact that, like, this is what I genuinely enjoy doing. So there's that, and then same with this. Like, I could probably just shade this. So that's like the next step, is to kind of put in the shading like this. Figure out like the values, kind of the dark and light, like the basic dark and light pattern. And because like, if the sketch is looking okay, so I'm just gonna shade it. Like, you can adjust things. And then the next thing would be like the detailing. Now if you get to a part, so I already detailed this, I mean, it looks detailed. The next part would be like final details, but I like to just leave it at the detail stage, and then I'll come back to it like today. And if I need to add anything, I will, but I'm gonna leave this because part of it is also just making it look like a nice sketchbook page. So yeah, as this last 10 minutes starts to wind down, I'm gonna wrap up this video. And hopefully you found it useful or entertaining, or both. And I want to thank you for joining me for today's daily sketching routine. So I'll just sketch for a minute, but just as an aside, because I'm at a point where I actually can invent a lot of this. But yeah, just as an aside, tomorrow I want to do, because I'll start another page, because I already filled this one, and I'll do figure drawing, but like interacting, because I haven't done a ton of those. I might have done it like a little bit, but yeah, it'll be like from imagination and just interacting with each other, since we have like this royal court thing going on. But yeah, you can see how I would just kind of continue to shade and just put in some light and dark. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that, to give you something to look forward to. So yeah, if you are interested in that, then I'll see you again.